It's state and local. That's
right
where the bloat is. Yeah.
Speaking of that Oval Address, let's move to the president's EO, giving Elon Musk's DOGE more power to find ways to cut government spending. Yesterday, the president, with Musk, defended DOGE's efforts, and our Eamon Javers has the latest on, Eamon, the optics of that presser, the AP getting locked out, and, of course, the coverage today from multiple outlets on how Musk is literally deregulating himself.
Yeah, that's right, Carl. The AP was locked out because their style guide does not acknowledge the name change for the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So that is a spat between the news agency and the White House. But what we saw yesterday was an impromptu press conference in the Oval Office with Elon Musk and his young son, X, standing just to the side of Donald Trump at the Resolute desk. Musk took on some of his critics who've blasted his DOGE efforts as a hostile takeover of government by painting those efforts as just an innocuous fact-finding mission designed to cut wasteful spending. He highlighted a couple of items he's found so far, including that the Treasury Department software systems sometimes don't include fields describing the nature of the payments, and that the federal government's employee retirement system is still largely paper-based and therefore inefficient. But he also conceded that some of the things that he has said so far are just not true, including the widely repeated claim that the United States was sending millions of dollars in condoms to Gaza, where they were used by Hamas. In fact, the condom effort was in Mozambique, and it's helping prevent the spread of AIDS.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
And although Musk has resisted basic disclosures about DOGE, such as the names and duties of the people who work there, he said his efforts will be maximally transparent.
You can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
Musk said all of DOGE's efforts will be posted to the website so that the public can judge for themselves whether he has any conflicts of interest. Back over to you guys.
So what are his next targets? I mean, he's been really focused on the U.S. aid office, the CFPB, as we've heard from some of the Fed reports, and expect more commentary today from the House Financial Services on that. Where else is he targeting as far as these federal workers and cuts?
Well, what's interesting, Sarah, is this, the whole ideological project here has been really focused on areas of government spending that Republicans generally disagree with. Foreign aid is a big one. We'll see what the president and Elon Musk said is that they're going to target the Pentagon next. We'll see how aggressive they go after wasteful spending in the military-industrial complex. That's been an area where, Republicans have been reluctant to poke around too aggressively over the years. But we're also seeing, and I want to bring up a graphic here that we prepared, just a couple of examples of some of the real-world consequences that we're already seeing in terms of the cuts to federal spending around the world at USAID. So we're seeing funding delays, according to the LA Times, funding delays to Head Start programs nationwide. According to the New York Times, at least 40,000 healthcare workers in Kenya are going to lose their jobs as a result of USAID cuts. Also, according to the New York Times, medical trials are halted in Mozambique, Bangladesh, and Malawi on different diseases that USAID was working on stamping out in those countries. So those are some of the real-world impacts of these cuts that have happened so far. And the debate here is sort of both a moral and a practical one. Morally, it's a debate for the American voter. What kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country that provides that kind of help or not? And Elon Musk was arguing yesterday that debate was decided at the polling place back in November. And then the other question is practically, what does that impact have on American soft power around the world in terms of creating an opportunity for China or others to step into the void as the U.S. pulls back from all these countries and say, hey, wait a second, China is actually the strong, wealthy country that can help you out. The Americans are weak and declining. You should turn toward us. Foreign policy analysts in sort of the big geostrategic game will say this creates a big opening for the Chinese as well.
Yeah, either the Chinese or alliances, Eamon, that are just ex-U.S., whether that's Canada and other partners. Big piece in the Journal today about Scheinbaum's popularity in Mexico. I do have a question for you about some of these court challenges, which are now making their way to the appeals level, and this notion of what happens if the executive branch simply continues to defy a court order, and where that leaves economic certainty, business certainty, and all the rest.
Well, I mean, it's a fundamental question of rule of law. And what was interesting about that presser yesterday, Carl, is that both Trump and Musk seemed to dial back some of their criticism of the courts. We saw, J.D. Vance very aggressively going after these lower court judges. We saw Elon Musk saying, these judges are simply anti-democratic, blocking what we're trying to do. They should get out of the way. We should ignore them. That kind of argument. In the Oval, though, what Trump said is, I've always abided by the courts and will continue to abide by the courts, and we'll appeal that. I think there's two basic things going on here. One is, I think the White House realizes that, ignoring courts is sort of not a popularly defensible thing, even among Republicans broadly. And two is that they largely control the Supreme Court ideologically. And so if they appeal all these things up to the Supreme Court, they have a very good chance of winning there. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of these fights are going to get expedited up to the Supreme Court, and Trump's going to win a lot.